Every 40 seconds, somebody in the U.S. has a stroke. Annually, about 800,000 people in the U.S. have a stroke. And of that, 1 in 4 have a recurrent stroke. Globally, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 25, not 55, 25, will have a stroke in their lifetime. Over half of the deaths from stroke occur in women. More men have strokes, but more women die from strokes. And maybe you'll shed some light on that when we talk. About 4.7 million people have strokes. Or have survived strokes. And African Americans are 50% more likely to have strokes. All right, so our first presenter is going to be Joshua Onyan. And Josh is the stroke program manager at Upstate Comprehensive Stroke Center. Josh, a registered nurse for 15 years at Upstate, has served in this role for 5 years. He also recently received his master's degree in nursing. Congratulations. Josh enjoys teaching and learning about all types of stroke. He serves on various stroke and EMS-related committees throughout the state in order to ensure that best practice stroke care is being followed. Josh.
My name is Josh Onyan. I'm a registered nurse from Upstate. I've been in nursing for about 15 years, and I just graduated with my master's. It's such a weight off my shoulders, and it's so cool. I love continuing education, and I think I just love teaching and learning. So I think Gwen mentioned several stroke facts to you all. Is anything surprising? Did you learn something from Gwen? Do you know somebody that's had a stroke? Show of hands. Yeah, statistically, we all should be able to raise our hands. I had a stroke scare myself. I'm 42. I'll share that. A couple weeks ago, I had a rare symptom that I thought was stroke, and I said, geez, I can't ignore this. I have to do what I teach. Both of my grandparents has had a stroke. It happens all the time, as you can see. So it's hard to not talk about someone that's had a stroke when you talk about these teachings. So think of this as you go through. If you haven't had a stroke, think of how you can help somebody if you see any signs of stroke and what to do. So I can't teach about mental health without teaching you what is a stroke, how to look for it, and how we treat stroke. So can anybody tell me what a stroke is? Minute point. No, a stroke is interrupting brain emergency. A stroke is an interruption of blood flow to your brain. Just like a heart attack is interruption of blood flow to your heart, your brain is equally, and I would say more important than your heart in the body. So it's a sudden interruption of blood flow. There are 2 types of strokes that we can see. You can have a blockage stroke where there's a clot or a thrombus that stops the blood flow, or you can have a bleeding stroke. They're both types of strokes that someone could have. At Upstate, we see about 2,000 people a year coming in with suspected stroke. And we're not the only stroke center in Syracuse. There's another hospital that sees the same volume. Can you believe that? That's almost 4,000, 5,000 patients in our neighborhood coming to us every year. It's wild. What to look for stroke? What are the classic signs for stroke? Droopy face, good. What else? Slurred speech. Anybody else?
Weakness in your arm or one of your legs, arm or leg.
Yes. Yes.
Left side, if I'm not mistaken.
It could be either, but we'll talk about that. That's perfect. There's a couple other symptoms. You guys are right on the money. A couple other symptoms that we might see for stroke that we don't usually associate with stroke. That's vision changes or vision loss. And then also a dizziness, people that just are dizzy all of a sudden. And the key word is sudden onset change. So if suddenly you're not able to move your left side or your right side, you could actually be having a stroke. Suddenly my face started to droop, I could be having a stroke. In my story, suddenly I had blurred vision in my eye and I said, shoot, I could be having a stroke. So I took myself to the ER. I was already at work. So we use the acronym FACE, face, arm, speech, T for time to call 911, or terrible headache, that can also be a sign of stroke. But we add a couple letters. So we have FAST, and we add the letters E and D for I as in vision changes and D as in dizziness. So FAST ED is how I say that one. And we're currently teaching EMS to look for these signs as well. Women have a couple different symptoms. Women are always special with the symptoms that healthcare brings them. Some general weakness you might see in women, not just a unilateral or one side. They could be weak on both sides. Disorientation or confusion or sudden onset memory problems, nausea, vomiting, or fatigue. So look for those signs as well. And again, the key word is sudden onset neurological change. So what do you do if you suspect a stroke? If you think you're having a stroke or someone you're with is having a stroke, what would you do? Yes, perfect. Thank you. Please don't try to drive yourself to the hospital. We see that all the time. It doesn't end well. So call 911. EMS will assess you. They'll figure out your symptoms. They'll communicate your symptoms to the hospital and say, we're coming in with a suspected stroke and we will be ready inside the hospital for you to get there. That's the best thing that you can do is call 911. Once you're in the hospital for stroke, we do an imaging called a CAT scan, which is an x-ray of your head. We're going to look for a bleed or a stroke that's already there. If we don't see either, we can give you a drug in your IV to help break up the clot if it's that kind of stroke, or we can bring you to our procedure room where we can actually remove the clot. Those are very time-sensitive procedures, so we have to make sure that you get to the hospital fast. All right, if you've had a stroke, we want to work you up to see what caused the stroke. We don't want you to have another stroke. So we're going to put a monitor on you to see what's going on with your heart. A lot of our stroke patients have atrial fibrillation. Have you heard of that term before? Unfortunately, yeah, it's tricky. A lot of us get it, and it can be a problem. So you just have to know what's going on with your heart. We're going to watch your blood pressure. We're going to draw labs. We're going to do an MRI to get a good picture of your brain to see what's going on there. The goal is to send you home safely so you don't have another stroke. Prevention's a really good way to not get a stroke. There are some things that we can change and some things we cannot. Obviously, we all get older. Age is a risk factor for stroke. Ethnicity, race, family history, and previous stroke or TIA are also risk factors that we cannot control, unfortunately. Things that we can control and we should be aware of: our blood pressure, our weight, our diet, our sleeping. Sleeping's so important and we often neglect it because we're very busy nowadays. Drinking excessively, smoking, vaping, drug use. If you have diabetes, try to control it. If you have blood pressure, at least be aware of your blood pressure at all times. If it's high, try to lower it. Talk to your doctor about that one. But the key thing is working at it. You can't change in one day. Just knowing your blood pressure is a good start. If you're high, monitor it for a couple days and then report that to your doctor. So again, you can't change it in one day. It's baby steps, but just be aware. Okay, so now we discharge you and you're out into the world, right? You've had a stroke and now you're on your own. So I think this is where, this is a good part for the conversation. We do a good job at Upstate making sure that you're safe to go home, but once you're home, you're home. So how do we care for you then? After stroke, we see a lot of post-stroke fatigue. I like to think of the brain as like your fuse box in your house, or your electrical panel. It just got all rewired. You're going to be tired all the time. Depression's a big thing post-stroke. Again, if you're by yourself, it just gets exacerbated. And post-stroke anxiety. So I'm going to talk about post-stroke depression and post-stroke anxiety a little bit, and mental health. So post-stroke depression, I'm going to call it PSD for short, is considered the most common consequence of stroke. About 1 in 3 people with stroke will have post-stroke depression, and it usually occurs within the first year. So patients get home and they say, well, this is my new normal, and it's hard to deal with sometimes. Having a stroke is life-changing. How can we modify our risk factors for depression? Some people with these risk factors will see more likely of stroke. Unfortunately, female gender fits into this one. Females always get tough here, but they're so strong in our daily lives that they suffer these things kind of the hardest. They hold so much pressure inside and so much weight for their family that when they have a stroke, we really see it. Like I said, first year following the stroke is a huge risk factor. If you're very disabled leaving the hospital or have disabilities like a visual field cut, life is going to be really tough. And when that hits you, That's depressing and anxiety causing. Your level of independence prior to stroke and your job, if that significantly changes, or you can no longer, if you're in the Army, you can no longer serve, that causes depression. And social isolation. COVID was terrible for people in general, but could you imagine having a stroke and now you're really home alone? So I'm glad we're moving through that. I don't know about you. But treatment for post-stroke depression can be done. The key is a combination therapy. We like to use pharmacological treatment like Prozac and Elavil, different types of drugs, but they don't work well alone. We want to combine them with cognitive behavioral therapy, so conversations, talking, music therapy, light therapy, and connection therapy. Just make people feel like they're themselves again and bring them comfort with these things. And also anxiety is huge. 1 in 4 people who have a stroke will experience high levels of anxiety within the first year, moderate to severe within 2 to 8 weeks after a stroke. That's huge. They just feel like they have this overwhelming burden that they can't control. More commonly seen in women again, especially those who are single, divorced, or widowed. There's a big fear of having a second stroke once you have your first stroke, and that's a huge thing for post-stroke survivors. Things that we use to treat anxiety post-stroke, similar to how you would without stroke: breathing techniques, physical activity, relaxation techniques, meditation, making sleep a priority, healthy eating, and decreased caffeine are a couple of things that we use. And then if you know somebody that's had a stroke and is having some of these symptoms, how do you comfortably talk to them about this? It's kind of a dance that you would have to do. You want to make sure they're ready for the conversation. Create a safe space to have this dialogue. Let them know that you're on their side and you want what's best for them. You have to feel it out. It might not always be the right time. Make sure that you're talking at the right time and explain to them that it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to get help, and you're here to help them. New stroke patients will have follow-up generally with their PCPs or their neurologists within a week or a month after their stroke. So you could use that as a time to have a professional evaluate them as well if you know that's coming along. And always just talk about it with them. Be open. You know, I've noticed these habits. Let's talk about that. It's going to affect you as a caregiver as well. And then once they decide to seek treatment, let them understand that it's not a quick process to recover. It takes time, and to be patient with themselves. You as a caregiver have to be patient with the stroke survivor as well, because it will be frustrating. Be patient with yourself and your loved one. Be supportive, be an advocate. If things aren't working for your peer or your stroke survivor, let them know, and let the providers know. And people that do better with mental health will often participate better with other activities physically. So mental health is huge there. And that's kind of all that I have. So I guess recognizing stroke signs and symptoms, you named all the things. Fast, perfect. Add ED, visual changes and any kind of dizziness. Call 911. Communicate with EMS what the problem is, and then understand that stroke doesn't just end when a patient goes home. A stroke is now part of their life, and you as a caregiver and support system have to recognize that and guide people through these conversations. So there are resources available. American Heart, American Stroke Association website has great resources for the community. You can look it up, but also I'll share these slides with Gwen, and it has my contact information if you have any questions. I put a lot of time into the prettiness of these slides, so I'm sorry that you can't see them, but you there, they're real nice, right? But Gwen will send these all out, and like I said, if you have any questions or follow-up, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. I'm here to help you guys, and that's just what I like to do. So.
All right, next we're going to have Todd Hobin and Thomas Honan. A little background about Todd. Todd is a Syracuse-based singer-songwriter, standing Hall of Fame member, visual artist, producer, professor, conductor, and composer. He wrote the score for the new award-winning documentary, The Artist and the Astronaut. He's known around the world as the leader of the Todd Hobin Band that was active from 1974 until 2019. Todd has recovered from a stroke that he suffered in 2018, and he's going to give us a little insight into his pre-stroke and post-stroke life. I will also introduce Tom Honan. Tom is executive producer of Live Space Entertainment, hosts the highly acclaimed record store radio show and serves as manager and agent for the Arctic and the Astronaut documentary. Tom also served as president of the St. Camillus Foundation and director of development at the Landmark Theater. Todd and Tom.
First of all, Josh is quite a resource. That was wonderful to hear. I got educated, and now I'm worried I'm going to have a stroke now or something. But I know what to do now. This is good. And it bears repeating. Josh did mention this. When you have symptoms that you're not familiar with, or you see someone in distress, it is so important to react quickly and to call 911, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, because it will dictate how you recover or if you survive at all. So just want to keep that in mind. So Todd, I want to start there. You're living your life, you're doing good, you're jumping around on stage, you're just living all good life. And then you had symptoms that I'm certain were scary and confusing. What were those symptoms and what did you do?
What happened was I woke up and my left side was numb. I couldn't move. I couldn't make things work. So I said to my wife, geez, I think I pinched a nerve, right? I must have pinched a nerve. She said, well, she went to work. Well, let me know how you are. Call me, then, right? So I called my doctor and said, hey, doc, I got some numbness here. I think I might have pinched the nerve. And he said, do me a favor, call 911 immediately. Trust me, call 911. I called 911. They came and picked me up. Thank goodness they did. I was in the middle of having a stroke. And I did not recognize it. That is crazy, right? I'm kind of a macho guy. So, and a lot of us guys are. Guess what? So are women. Women are the worst. I got to take care of my family. I got stuff to do. I'm having a little trouble with my arm. I'm going to just keep working right through it, right? We can't do that. My wife feels terrible that she didn't recognize these things. She went off to work, and I got picked up by an ambulance. She met me at the hospital. When the doctor told me that I had a stroke, we both said, that's impossible. No, there's no way. But I had a good doctor. He showed me, oh, look at this. It was an ischemic stroke, which means that in my case, my carotid arteries were blocked up. Okay, so blood wasn't getting to my brain. When blood doesn't flow to your brain cells die. It's irreversible. They die. So here I am in the hospital. They took great care of me. And, I think I said in the commercial, take me to Krause, right? It doesn't matter where you go. We are so fortunate. You just say 911, get me to the nearest emergency room. Go to Upstate. They're incredible. Go someplace. And in my case, the next day, they went in and they cleared my carotid artery so that I wasn't going to have another stroke. Put a pin in that. 3 years later, I was starting to have another stroke, and they sent me in for the other carotid artery. And got that done, right? Second time, I recognized, I got some dizziness here. I can feel some burbling over here. I think I got to come in, doc. I went in. He said, okay, what are you doing the next couple of days? We're going to do some surgery. In my case, this week, right now, 5 years ago, that's when I had my stroke. So I'm a 5-year survivor. Most people don't think that I have any problems because I overcame the paralysis. And those who know me really well know that I'm not normal. And that's the thing you have to know about somebody who had a stroke. It's never the same. They don't go back to normal. In my case, you'll hear me stutter every once in a while. I never used to do that. Now, I got some issues. Okay, I just deal with it. But the big thing, and this is the most important thing, people ask me this all the time. I got calls from Canada. So my fans said, gee, my uncle just had a terrible stroke. He's a drummer. He can't play drums anymore. Well, how did you overcome it? I'm going to tell you what the secret is. And I think the way that I approached my recovery is changing the way we look at strokes, recovery. Remember I said the brain cells were dead? The part of my brain that happened to get hit, and it's different for almost every stroke, was not knowledge. I knew what I wanted to do. It just, my hand wouldn't respond. An hour after I came out of surgery, my kids are there with my guitar and they placed it across my chest. Literally, I just tried to pick up one finger at a time. Now, I didn't know this, but here's how the brain works. It's awesome. It's brilliant, right? The nerve endings, the brain cells, correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, were dead. So my brain was creating new connections. And this took some time. It's like watching a baby take their first steps. It takes 6 months. You know, you see them, oh, they're going to walk. Oh, no, not yet. Right? Fall, crawl. Well, that's what my fingers did. And here's the key to it. I'm an obsessive compulsive person. After the stroke, I said, Doc, how soon can I get back on stage? I got concerts I got to play. And he goes, 6 months? And I go, 6 months? I got a show this weekend. And he just laughed at me that, what, are you nuts?
Well, let me jump in on that point because I don't know how many months it was afterwards, but we put together one at Sharkey's, up at Sharkey's, and it was a very hot day. It must have been summer, August or something. And Todd, I'm going to ask you about how you got there in terms of rehearsals, but a lot of folks were saying, yeah, this is great. Todd must have been, he's going to come back on stage, the band, it's going to be fun. And it was. There were people behind the scenes and family going, were you nuts? Come on, man, you can't do that. Why don't you go up and do a 30-minute set? We have other bands on the thing. You don't have to carry the day. Just make a point that you're back and you've recovered and here you go. And you're 20 pounds lighter than you should be, and it's 87 degrees outside, and the sun is right on the stage. Blew through 30 minutes, went through 90 minutes, and was almost a 2-hour full rock and roll show. And yeah, macho. There's macho and stupid. There's a gray area in there, and the rest of us are all, I know Joanne, his wife, and the rest of us are backstage going, okay, you know, and his son, Brett, plays bass in the band, did not take his eyes off you the whole show. I have pictures. But having said that now, you had all the help, you had all the medical stuff, you had the doctors, you had family, but it all comes down to, you can't do it alone, but yet it all came down to what was deep inside of you. You had that drive to do everything people told you and then follow your own gut. How was that feeling in those months between this new life you have and going back to your old life, which was on stage?
This is the important thing. It's moving my fingers. But when we get out of a stroke, they give us physical therapy, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week for an hour. My regimen was, when I woke up, I tried to play until lunch. And my wife, oh, that's the other thing. Before you go into a stroke, if you're married, treat that person like gold, like a treasure. Because if it wasn't for my wife, I'm not recovered. Okay, flat out. Same thing with the kids. So I would do that till lunch. I would have to take a nap because I was exhausted. It's what the doc said. You know, after a stroke, man, you're wiped out. It's bad. And I would play until dinner time. I would practice. And I got to tell you, it was pretty god awful. I was terrible. And after dinner, I would take a nap. I'd play until I fell asleep. I did that every single day, sometimes as much as 12 hours a day. That's 12 hours of physical therapy every day to retrain my brain to do what I knew it could do. So I've been preaching to stroke survivors, whatever it is you're having a hard time doing, do the physical therapy, but in between physical therapy, every day, do the same thing. over and over and over and over again. I'm a musician. What do they say? Practice makes perfect. You know, repetition, you just do the same thing over and over and over again, and you can get it back. And really, my brain rerouted neurons to do what I needed to do because I knew how to do it. It just wasn't getting response.
Now, Todd, with that and going back to what Josh said, going through that process, you were determined. 12 hours a day is a long time every single day. And like you said, you were awful and it was hard, hard, hard. How did it affect you in terms of your mental health, in terms of juggling that and and depression? And yes, you had family around. And let's think about the fact, folks, that a lot of people are alone. A lot of people don't have support, family, all this stuff, and that has to be talked about. But in this case, you did. But still, did you end up feeling rather alone at some point or dark, just trying to plow through that and go, wow, I used to do this without thinking. Now I have to think of every single note.
No, I never got depressed. I never got down, ever. I knew what my goal was, and I never lost sight of it every single day. I had a wife that fed me, took care of me, browbeat me, you know, backed me up. My kids, my friends came by, you know, to see how I was doing. My support network would make it. And that first show back, my band had my back. I wore my guitar. They covered me. So again, before you have a stroke, you know, you gather around yourself, your community. You gather around yourself, your friends, your family, and you treat them like, oh, someday, you know, they're going to be worth that. Truly, truly, truly. So now that's my story that I tell people, first of all, recognize the stroke. Secondly, to recuperate, to recover, you got to force whoever has that stroke to walk 10,000, 20,000 steps a day. Some people have a hard time writing, typing, working a typewriter. By the way, I didn't go to the computer for 6 weeks, 2 months, I think, afterwards, because that would have messed up, you know. I really did everything, and I never, ever, ever lost sight of that goal. I know some people that don't have that, and that's why we do trying to book stroke. And Josh has got a group too that deals with survivors. We want to bring people in and give them the support they need to have that really positive attitude that you can do this. It ain't going to be easy, and it's going to take some time. You know, people think I'm back to normal. I'm not. It's life after stroke. But hey, you know, I'm going to be 74 years old. I'm still playing. I'm still working every day. And it's a blessing. Every day is a blessing. Every single day. You know, can I play for you? I want to play for you because
Because you can.
I can. I'm going to play a song that I wrote for my wife. It was the first thing that I learned how to play, and I wrote it, and I hadn't finished recording. Actually, it has been recorded once, but I'm going to put it on the next record. And I wrote this for my beautiful bride. And they said it wouldn't last, but our hearts are holding fast. Another day, another moment gets stuck into our pattern. From the moment that I met you, that's all that moment was designed. We'd be looking at forever, one moment at a time. We'd be looking at forever, one moment at a time.
Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna open it up to questions and answers. So Josh, you can bring your chair out here.
Yeah, if it's medical.
Yeah.
I said the word ischemic. I don't know what that
Yeah,
means.
spell it. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah. This happened, what, about 5 years ago?
5 years this week.
And I do events. I've known Todd well over the years.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, your life, your career, and you toured across the United States, into Europe, everywhere. And for a number of years, you also did an ad agency as well.
True.
And we convinced you to get back into, playing.
You were the one, yeah.
And I remember we did something at Oneida Shores Beach Days. And that was was around
2000.
2000, right around there.
Yeah.
And 10,000 people came out to see him. It's just amazing.
Crazy.
Well, when you went through that, I have an event that I do, winter fair. And I think that may have been one of your first appearances after stroke.
It was, yeah, one of them.
And it was just amazing to see the recovery that, there's hope. And you're a living legend for that. I just had to give that background because,
Oh, thanks, yeah.
I've followed Todd's career. We've become very close, good friends. And, it was great. That was the first year we did it.
That's right.
30,000 people coming out,
Yeah,
and you were the headline.
it was. It was a great community event. Brought out a lot of folks. And again, this is all about community. We all of us had to stick together, and we got to take care of those that don't have, big extended family like I have.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point there too. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but with community, we've talked a lot about that and resources and community and getting together and people you can rely on. This is an NAACP membership meeting, and it's I hope a lot of people become members, because even our Surgeon General has talked a lot about isolation and loneliness and being disconnected. And I think as a membership meeting, if people join this group, it could be actually really good for your health. You're joining a group and you're becoming involved with people, and you're solving very important issues out there, and you're being connected. And that's what we're all talking about. We can't control whether we have a stroke necessarily, but when you fall down, it's nice to know that there are people to pick you up. And that's what this community is all about. And that's why I hope this event gets people to think about signing up to join.
Voting.
And voting. Yes.
Yeah, I may have missed maybe a discussion of this aspect of stroke care or prevention, but I'm interested in finding out the impact of stress. According to what you were saying, I heard that the Surgeon General report about loneliness, but I'm interested in finding out the impact of stress related to stroke, because people are under tremendous amounts of stress. And of course, we all don't eat the best diets, et cetera, and we tend to be a little bit more sedentary, but I'm interested specifically in how stress impacts the probability of having stroke.
Great question. So heart attack and stroke kind of along the same lines. Stroke is probably been your category. Heart attack is but they're both hugely impacted by stress. When you're stressed, blood pressure goes up. You might not know it. That's a silent killer right there. I might be stressed now, but sitting here talking to you guys with a high blood pressure. So you don't eat right. You eat a lot of sugar. When you're stressed, you eat quickly. You don't sleep well. You're not sleeping regularly. You might pick up habits that you shouldn't. You can grab a glass of wine or something on a Monday where that normally wasn't. All the things that you do, behaviors that you have when you're stressed, are really contributing to risk factors for stroke and diabetes. Stress is just terrible. So I mentioned a little bit about relaxing, just finding a silent space for yourself a couple times a day, 15 minutes to just reflect on the things that you have, I think is huge. Working in healthcare, I see good things and bad things all day. Just a reminder of what I have in my life, even simple thing about opening my eyes in the morning and getting myself out of bed, pouring a cup of coffee on my own, having a roof over my head, things like that. Just appreciate those things. Take a deep breath and let those things sink in. That will just lower your blood pressure and lower your risk a little bit, just for a moment. If you do that a couple times a day, I think you'll go in the right direction. We're so busy all the time, but you are the most important person in your life. Give yourself some time and relax a little bit.
My name is Morgan. I heard a lot of resilience, had a lot of support around a blessing. But how does the hospital help an individual who does not have those supports, who does not have, the family or even natural supports to be able to get through something so significant?
That's a good question. We rely on, a discharge assessment. Are you okay going home? What do you have to talk to? If you don't have somebody, give you some resources. But support groups and communities like this are really key. Making friendships, people that will check on you, and you can check on them when they're not there. Calling somebody once a week, even if you're not as close, but just to check in on somebody, I think there's a lot of value there that you might not give it at first. But we run a stroke support group for Upstate, just like Kraus does. We have our stroke survivors that will touch base every week, and I can say, hey, where's Deb? I didn't see her this week. And they say, she didn't feel well. I checked on her. And it's really important. You see a lot of bang for your buck there. So stroke support group, we do virtual, we do in person. There's national support groups that you can join via Zoom, just to know that you're not alone. Takes a little bit of weight off it.
By the way, the name of our group is the Triumph Over Stroke. And every month we meet. And if you can't get to the meeting personally, we also Zoom. So that has been really good. Like people who are shut in or can't get around, they can get to the library, whatever, Zoom in, and we just check up on each other all the time. And when we were doing COVID, it was really hard because we were used to getting together and supporting each other and hearing our stories. And, we did this thing on nutrition this last month, and it's kind of hard because everything that I like, I'm not supposed to eat, But it was a good thing to hear,
No bacon, no wine, all right? Pizza.
Pizza's off the list. Oh, man. I get to eat a lot of kale.
Yeah, but you're sitting here talking about it, so.
I think we've gotten used to the virtual world now, and I think as good as in person is, I think that we've gotten used to seeing smiles on people's faces through a video, and it kind of can bring a smile to ours at times, where at the beginning of COVID, I was like, this is cold, I'm not getting to this. But I've seen in our stroke support group, people are smiling to each other through the screen. So I think even just hearing voices and exchanging.
Right, and better at cell phone technology too. So like a lot of our members, they might not have a computer, but pretty much everybody's got a phone now or can borrow one and Zoom in. So I'm a big.
Josh, have you seen an increase in strokes since COVID?
A little bit. There's still a lot of studies being done on what COVID does, and they're looking at long COVID and short COVID too. And there are things happening with people we don't even know yet. What they think COVID is doing with someone's blood is making it a little bigger, more often in some cases. So we have seen patients that come in and have had COVID in the past at some point that now either have a clot or long part. Not all of them. And there's still a lot of research, but we are seeing a little bit of a correlation. That's kind of nationally, worldwide. I think also when someone has COVID, you're dehydrated, you're probably not moving a lot, so you're bringing other risk factors that might bring about a stroke. You already have to take the blood a little bit, now you're laying still, you're probably getting these things that we're seeing. But COVID really did, it was wild. So thankful that we're out there.
I just want to give compliments to Upstate and the medical community. I had cancer and diabetes when I first found out I had a rare cancer called hairy-cell leukemia back in 2006. I didn't have to go to any other city. It was taken care of right here. I also have diabetes. I go to the Joshua Center. Can you speak of, for you, Todd, you've been across the country.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you unsure when you had your stroke that you had to go somewhere else? Or can you speak of the support you get here locally?
I would be glad to speak to that. I was very lucky that right here in my own community, we've got two hospitals that are rated incredibly high nationally. And I was totally confident in my doctors, the support staff. Frankly, what Josh does, the doctor comes in and does all the plumbing, you know, but it's people like this who manage the results, you know, and every single person that I met at both Upstate and at Krause, they work together. We are so blessed. We're a small community. I just in this last couple of weeks, I've been in Connecticut, Stamford. Those people are freaking wealthy, right? They got the best of everything. But somebody has a stroke there, they're not going to do any better than me here, right here in central New York. I was out in Arkansas a few days ago, and they're lucky because the Walton family, again, really wealthy, so they got really good medical facilities and stuff. But I put up our stats in our hospitals against anybody the Waltons could buy and anybody that people in the metropolitan New York could do. We have, you know, the best medical care anywhere in the world. Very fortunate. Honestly, I don't remember a down day. And I know that I'm blessed. I'm very fortunate man. And I know how lucky I am. I've got a lot of friends, fans around the world. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has a guitar that they can pick up and be obsessive about every single day. So that's why I got involved with Triumph Over Stroke, so that we could all work together to get happy, you know. By the way, our meetings are not sad. They're joyous. They're wonderful. We're alive. Or like the pastor said in our prayer, 100%, as soon as you began your prayer, I was with you 100% because you said, we woke up today. And that's my everyday blessing. When I wake up, you know, and I'm not paralyzed, I'm like, this is a great day.
And I can add on to that because during all of this, Todd and I worked together on a lot of projects, and we spend a lot of time in the studio together, editing and working and recording and all kinds of things. And there were times where, yeah, you were tired, but the work, and this might speak to everybody, if you have a passion, if you have something, a hobby, anything you would do, maybe it's a guitar, but Todd's work, we happen to have started some projects prior to this happening, and then we added some on afterwards. And I think you can speak more directly, but I think the work itself motivated you, because the work that we do and get involved in is joyful creation, and that's what we do. We create work, we create entertainment. And so coming to the studio every day, I think in and of itself was motivation. And for those of us around him, we're, you know, believe it or not, we're all worried about you. So there's, you know, we're all sitting around going, what kind of day is Todd going to have? And then we learned from him that, yeah, he's got it. And that we learned from him that we should be thankful every minute and just move on with our work. And I think that all the ships rose by doing it that way. We happen to be blessed with lots of work. And whether it's work or hobby or family or kids, keep engaged in that. That's your normal. And, the goal is to get normal, as normal as we can get, after such an event. So.
I showed up a little bit late, but what I heard was wonderful because stroke actually runs in my family. My uncle just a couple of weeks ago, he woke up and he said, "I've got a terrible headache," and an hour later he was gone. But also prior to that, trained ischemic attacks. That's sort of those like mini strokes that you see more of those. Because obviously TIAs, they aren't as as awful for the effects on right neck stroke. Are you seeing more, and what can we do?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I like to get rid of the term mini stroke. I call it a warning sign because probably 75% chance you are going to actually have a big stroke if you have a TIA. What's happening in your body is you're having some sort of blockage, but it goes away. So you have symptoms like a stroke, and then it disappears from the blockage. And you're lucky that blockage went away. So we teach EMS in our community, call 911 still, even if your symptoms go away. We want to figure out why it happened. It's a blockage in your neck. We want to fix it. We don't want you to have a big stroke. So we do see quite a bit of TIA. Unfortunately, a lot of people drive in where symptoms are resolved, but I still say call 911. Let us figure it out for you.
What would you consider some of the symptoms of TIA? Because some of us, might not even realize that's what it is.
So symptoms would be the same as a stroke, ischemic stroke. So facial droop, arm weakness, language trouble, sudden onset dizziness, vision loss. You're still getting the same blockage that you do for a stroke, but like I said, it goes away on its own.
I had all of those,
Yes,
every one, and I ignored them.
and that's what it is. Because we ignore it because it passes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen patients coming without symptoms and their symptoms come back while they're in the emergency room. That's how it can happen. We need to fix the problem with that. We don't want you to have a big stroke.
What about changes that we can make? Dieting, of course, staying hydrated, other things. I mean, I'm sure that you might have mentioned that earlier before I came in.
Stress. Get rid of your stress.
As they say, suffering is the pathway to peace. And so unfortunately, that involves stress sometimes.
Yeah. In moderation, everything in moderation. Exercise, diet control. I think if I can say one thing, know your blood pressure, watch your blood pressure, and if it's out of control, control your blood pressure. It's all the silent killer. It kills your eyes, it kills your head, it kills your heart, it kills your kidneys. If it's too high for too long, it will kill you. So know your blood pressure.
Know your numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you.